Good evening, YouTube readers. I'm here again, bringing you a whole new episode and novel ideas with Jessie. And as you know, I am Jessie. This week I'm going to be bringing you something new that I would like to start, beginning with Manga Mondays. So along with my novel reviews, I will also be doing manga reviews. And for the month of September, I'm going to start with Manga Classics, which means the first Monday of every week, I'm going to do a review of a Manga Classic, and then the next day in the week, around maybe Friday, I'll release the review for the actual classic novel. And if no one's actually came across this before, Manga Classics is a manga series that is being released recently that follow along with your favorite classical stories. And the first episode of Manga Monday, especially in the classic series I'm going to be starting with, is The Scarlet Letter. Now, for anyone who has never heard of The Scarlet Letter, this was written by Nathaniel Hawthorne in 1850. Or it was published in 1850. But with Manga Classics, it was written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. It was edited by two others, but the actual artwork that is done in this volume of Manga Classics was done by, I apologize if I mispronounce. I pronounce words as I read them. So I believe it is Sun Nico Lee is the artist for this manga book, and they don't really number the pages in these books, so it's hard to give you an exact volume size, but I believe it's a little over 300 pages. And I read this one first about the beginning of this year because I was taking a literature class in college, and we came up with we had to do reports on American classics, and my first choice was The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I had already owned a copy of the actual novel by him, but my local library, the Johnston County Public Library, had recently gotten a copy of this in their graphic novel section, so I decided to check it out and give it a read. And so the great thing about it is it hadn't been so long since I had read the actual novel, so I could compare it side by side, and I can really say in good faith that The Scarlet Letter of Manga Classics is really close to the context of the actual novel. I didn't find many discrepancies or straying away from the actual original content. I felt that it actually, if someone wanted to get a good idea of what this book was about and didn't really want to sit down and read the original word for word, I believe they could still get the good gist of what was going on in the Manga Classic. It's not one of those situations where it's like, okay, you have to do a book report and instead of reading the book you watch the movie instead. But no, I'm not going to tell you to read this instead of the actual novel if you have a report due for class or something. But I believe if you are reading the actual novel for any kind of project that is school related or even just for personal gain, I would definitely try to read this one alongside of it, because as I said, it's a pretty true to the story comparison, so it really gives you a what's the word I'm looking for here? It helps you build the picture in your mind. It's a great representation. Now, getting to the artwork that Sun Nico Lee has done in this book is completely superb. I believe, don't quote me on this, but the entire series of the Manga Classics, I believe Sun Nico Lee is the one who does the artwork for all of these. And I've noticed two varying styles between these mangas. And the style that you find in The Scarlet Letter is the one I like the most. The faces are what I would say more heart-shaped and rounded, as opposed to some of their other series like Sense and Sensibility and I believe Romeo and Juliet, where the faces are more pointed and the figures are more slender and angular. So I really enjoyed the art style in this book. And the one thing that I found very interesting is in this manga, it's done completely in black and white, like all the other ones are, except for one key point. Hester Prynne's A for adultery that you see on her bosom is in red throughout the entire book. It is the only color on the actual manga pages throughout the entire book you will see, and I believe that really drives home the point of the story, because you have an entire book of black and white pages, beautifully drawn, mind you, but except for that one red A, and it marks Hester not only to the people of the village that what she's done wrong, but to the reader themselves. You can feel like you're in the crowd of people who are judging Hester or watching her, and even to your eyes, she's been marked as an adulteress because that red A stands out. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this representation in manga form is Pearl, which is Hester Prynne's daughter born out of wedlock. I loved her representation because throughout the entire novel, the original classic novel read by Nathaniel Hawthorne, he pretty much describes Pearl as like a little imp or a little fairy, something wild and devilish that was sent from the pits of Hades to torture Hester, to be her loving child, but also at the same time more as her punishment. And I believe that Sonoku Lee really grasped that concept. They didn't make her as demonic as the doctor, who was pretty much sold his soul to the devil to find out who Hester Prynne's secret lover was. But Pearl had this impish and mischievous kind of personality, but when she got really angry, you can honestly, just below the veil of her little girl exterior, see that part of her that made her seem almost magical, like she didn't quite belong there. And I also believe they did a perfect job representing the pastor, or the priest, as you want to call him. 'Cause in the book, when I read it, I was just so upset with him and his personality and his involvement in the story and his just lack of courage. But I'm not going to go entirely into that because I'm saving that for Friday when I review the novel. But they gave a proper visual representation of him, of his slow decline in personality, and to an eventual story building climax, to where he finally, I wouldn't say, well, I guess you would say at the point that it was character building for him, but it was more like he was at a high point, he declined, and then towards the end he was able to lift himself up into the eyes of the people and the Lord, because he was finally truthful to not only himself but the people. But as I said before, yes, this is a great start for anyone. If you've never read a classic novel before and you believe you may want to try one, I say start with the Manga Classics first, and it'll give you a good idea of what you're getting yourself into. And then if you enjoy the story that's underneath all the wonderful artwork, it's easy to pick up a classic and start reading from there. Always start with your local libraries. They carry, I guarantee they carry all of them. If not, they can always request you one. And even though they were written a time out of ours, about 200, 300 years ago, the underlying stories they represent sometimes are so socially relevant, and they're definitely worth the time. So, my rating on this manga, out of 5 stars, I definitely give it a 5. Artwork's wonderful, content's great. I believe they held as close to the story as possible, and overall, it was a wonderful work. So, definite 5 out of 5. Go out and read, order off Amazon, request it from your library, borrow it from a friend, but definitely sit down and read it. And that is all I have to say about the Scarlet Letter Manga Classic. But I invite all YouTube readers to come back and work with me again as we go through and review the actual Scarlet Letter novel by Nathaniel Hawthorne, and I hope to have that one posted up by Friday evening. And the week after that, we'll be carrying on the entire month of September by doing a Manga Classic on Monday and the actual novel on Friday. And then after that, October, Halloween season, scary books. Alright, YouTube readers, have a great night and keep on reading.